Greetings everyone and welcome. It's Sunday once more, which means it's time for another episode of the Captain's Table. To recap last week's episode, my mother had managed to break her leg in 2 locations and was expecting surgery to fix it, and we were waiting to see what the prognosis for her recovery time was going to be. And other than that, not a lot was going on in my life. Well, that trend basically continued this week. Not a lot has been going on personally for me. My week at work has actually been pretty damn good. I didn't go in and work any extra overtime, partly because they told me I needed to stop doing all the extra overtime. So, as a result of my clock in and clock out time frame between, the 55 minutes instead of an hour that I take for lunch and traffic related arrival times, I actually had quite a bit of overtime stacked up, and that allowed me to leave basically 30 minutes early from work. Although technically, when I clocked out, I only left 15 minutes early from work, so I did get a little bit of overtime. Well, I should say, I got a little bit more overtime than I intended to get, but given the current way my time clock system works, that does mean every Friday I'm looking at the opportunity of getting to leave up to 20-30 minutes early if I continue my current trends. Now, I doubt my employer will object to that, because the alternative is paying me for basically every minute I'm on site. Sometimes, though, of course, as much as I'd love to leave early at any other point in the week, it's not always the option. An example is today, even. Well, I say today. It's Saturday, when I had a particularly troublesome dishwasher that I was dealing with. Now, this is a dishwasher that I had swapped out with a different unit and was basically trying to replace the pump motor for the water in. Managed to replace it, get it all hooked up, and was still having an issue with the water not pumping in. Very, very worrisome. Ultimately, ended up changing the water inlet valve before I finally looked up the solution, because I was still not getting water in. And incidentally, the solution was also third down the list from what I'd already tried, was actually to test what's known as the float. And the float is basically a piece of plastic that's hooked up to a long little plastic pin that flips a switch when the water level gets too high inside the dishwasher to prevent it from overflowing out of the sides of the door. It will raise and lower. Well, this particular float was stuck in the up position, and it was preventing water from actually flowing through the dishwasher. So I basically replaced a part I didn't need to before I actually got it to work. And then as soon as I actually did get it to start flowing water through the system, it immediately started leaking. And not just a small amount of water, a quite significant amount of water before I hit the stop and cancel button to drain the water out of the system. And given the way the dishwasher is set up, it still leaked quite a bit of water. And that took up a lot of my end of day. Not entirely too much. I still could have clocked out when I should have for a nice clean 8-hour or 8-hour and 5-minute day. But no, when I finished up with that, I realized that our recycling dumpsters had been emptied, which they normally aren't emptied until Monday morning, but since nobody's there on Sunday and they don't want me to come in on Sunday, I took them out mid-afternoon on Saturday, put them in the normal spot. I noticed that they were empty, at least on the east side. Now, we have two buildings at my current work. There's east and west. Each has their own trash rooms. Well, east side was empty, so I brought them in. Since they were empty, there was no reason to keep them out all weekend and blemish our sidewalk. Granted, I did notice when I brought them in that the recycling person who normally comes on Saturday apparently saw the recycling bins out and assumed they were what he was actually supposed to pick up because he didn't pick up the recycling bins he's supposed to pick up, which are normally located in our trash room, and they belong to one of our restaurants. And both of their recycling bins were full. Hey, good news for me, not my screw up, because that's technically our bins where they're normally found, not where the other bins for the restaurant are normally found, and that guy basically didn't do due diligence and go and look at that, so it doesn't come back on me in any way, shape, or form, which is also good news. I hope. We also did finally finalize a new maintenance technician at work. Hopefully everything works out. His paperwork comes back clean and good to go, and he will start sometime in the next 2 weeks. That also means that, well, I don't have to worry about putting recycling out on Saturday or coming in on Sunday for additional overtime, because there's going to be somebody there to take care of those issues. But my supervisor did get his finalization from his orthopedic surgeon for his L&I claim, basically stating that he had to have knee surgery, and that was going to be done sometime in the next 2 or 3 weeks, depending on when they could fit him in, which does mean that, well, he's going to be gone. We do still have quite a bit of stuff that needs to be done at work. Granted, fortunately, as previously mentioned, a lot of the stuff is unit turns, and a lot of those unit turns, really, they only need touch-up paint, even when you do major patches and texturing on the walls, because the paint is such high quality. So, even if we do have a day-long turn, that's still a day-long turn and not multiple days. Which means we should be able to take care of any of the situations that we need to during his absence. And I really am hoping that the new guy does start. We're able to get him up to relative speed with, at the very least, the unit turns and the basic groundkeeping on the weekends, so that I don't have to come in and there's not a lot of on-call related stuff that needs to be worried about with him when he does start over the month of May. As far as my family life is concerned, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, my mom went in for her surgery. Well, she went in and she talked to the orthopedic surgeon, who did recommend surgery, and they did do the surgery. As it did turn out, she broke her leg in 2 places. Fortunately, no ligament, bursal sacs, or any other kind of tears in her knee. It was just 2 different leg breaks, effectively in the same spot. She had one lateral and one vertical. Now, the lateral one, that would technically repair on its own. That's the kind of leg break that people get, that they tend to get the boot and a scooter or crutches for. It's the vertical one that's a really problematic because of the nature of the break and the shape of the bone. It basically means that she cannot put any weight on her leg in that particular location. Or effectively means she can't put any weight on her leg that pushes pressure up. Because if she does, the bone could again separate even after surgery and push right into those soft tissues into the knee, which would result in significantly more pain, a significantly longer recovery time, and even more surgery, depending on what it ruptured. My mother does not like this prospect, partly because it means she's missing work, but also partly because it basically means she's reliant on her mother and her two brothers that live with her. Now, I say with her, it's tentative. She lives in a duplex. My granny has the other side of the duplex, and both her brothers effectively live on the property. One lives in the duplex with my granny, and the other one lives in a trailer next to my mom's house. The good news is she has a lot of assistance. The bad news is she doesn't really want to accept it. However, it is a 12-week recovery, and at the very least she is, well, effectively 2 weeks into that recovery. Now, the surgery did kind of eat up a week of that, or the pre-surgery ate up a week of that, keeping off of it. The surgery fortunately went well, and she only has what is effectively at this point 10 weeks left in recovery where she can't put any weight on it. The bad news for me, at the very least, is that she is unable to make it up for my birthday party, which, if you're watching this video at the time and day that it's uploaded, is simply 1 week away. Yes, that's right, my birthday is on the 6th of May. But as far as family matters are concerned, my birthday is not the only birthday that you should be concerning yourself with. I have previously mentioned, and those of you who follow me on Facebook, and even some of the museumship videos that I have uploaded will probably undoubtedly feature pictures of the man himself. Is my father. My father turns 63 today, the 29th of April. Yes, that's right. Sunday, the 29th, my dad turns 63. 1 week before my own birthday. Figure that one out. No, don't figure that one out. I know where I was conceived, because he's told me. And no, it's not as a relation to birthday or Valentine's Day. But yes, my father turns 63 on this day, the 29th of April, and I am basically preoccupied with his relative birthday parties. And he's got two different ones effectively going on. One that involves his sister, my aunt, and his niece, my cousin, who was actually up visiting from Guatemala. You might be wondering why I have a cousin in Guatemala and how she's related to the family. Well, she's directly related to the family, and she's in Guatemala because she's part of the Peace Corps. And that's where they ultimately sent her. And she had some vacation time, decided to come up, and the time frame that she came up ultimately resulted in her having the weekend available and some time to stop in Seattle to visit my father. As for next week, well, next week will be somewhat interesting in the respect that I do have to work on Saturday, but I do have Sunday and Monday off as normal. My uncle originally planned to have a housewarming and belated birthday party for himself on the 5th of May that would have resulted in me having to take off early from work, catching a ferry, doing all sorts of driving, and getting over to the peninsula to see him. And then he decided he wasn't doing a formal party. It was going to be more of a potluck, casual get-together, and as a result, I have decided I am not going to that. I'm not going to take time off and work extra the rest of the week. Although I might still do that. I haven't decided yet. I'll figure that out on Friday, I'm sure. But since I'm off at 4 normally, I don't really see any reason to do such a thing. And instead, my birthday is the following Sunday, on the 6th of May. Nice early morning brunch at a local place that I'm kind of looking forward to, actually, with, you know, the exception of the probable hangover that I will suffer from any outings or get-togethers I do the night before, which is, of course, Cinco de Mayo, known for lots of tequila. Looking forward into the week following, really not a lot going on in that last few days of April, first week of May, if you will. There are a few apartments that I have to turn, but again, as mentioned, I mean, even the worst turns that I've had to deal with the new property have not been terrible, really, just touch-ups. Touch-ups have had to be done, and for the most part, I'm pretty confident in my ability to get those done, get anything else done that needs to be taken care of, and continue to move forward. So on a work-related front, not a lot overly concerning there. Not a lot overly concerning in life, which is also, and of course, always a good thing. Anyway, that's it for this week's episode of the Captain's Table. Let me know what you have thought-wise in the comments, any suggestion, tips, or otherwise down below. If you'd like to help support me and the channel, and of course any support is encouraged and appreciated, you can always support me on Patreon. You can find links for all things down below in the comments. And as always, I'll see you next time. This is Captain Rye, signing off.